Fantastic. Hi there, guys. Good to be here with you. This is part of a new series of webinars that we've been trying out here at Ubiquiti. Obviously, we rely heavily on our partners in terms of outreach globally. So we made ourselves available to run webinars on behalf of partners, which is what this is. We'll be walking through UniFi Enterprise today. Just as we jump into things then, so obviously working with the guys here from Intelcom for this particular webinar. So they've done all of the generation. You probably wouldn't have heard anything from us just yet, but we've been here to get the content right and tailor towards the requirement. So enterprise at scale was the focus for this one. Just by way of introduction, my name's Dan Heath. I work in the pre-sales team at Ubiquiti. Pre-sales to us, we're a very open role. We do a lot of different things. We do trade shows. We obviously run our UniFi World conferences. We work with the partners for technical training. We deliver these types of webinars, and we also feed back to products. So we're a multifunctional role. Within Europe, there are about 5 or 6 of us now in the pre-sales team. It's something we're expanding all the time. So the guys at Intelcom, they're able to get in touch with us if ever you've got any sort of specific technical questions, for example, and we can help with them. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight in. The format of this webinar, really, I'm going to talk a little bit about our positioning, how we envisage UniFi, what our vision is around that, what our strategy is, and then start working our way into that enterprise narrative. There's quite a lot of content. This is all brand new content as well. So you would never have seen any of this before. This is actually the first webinar some of these slides have been used on. And we'll weave that into what we are doing as an organization as well. So let's start with the start. What does UniFi stand for? If you ever see Robert on stage at UniFi World Conference, he will always talk about that UniFi is value to the power of 3. And that the power of 3 comes down to these 3 key areas. We focus on building quality hardware, and that's everything down to the silicon inside, the chassis, the optics when it comes to cameras, for example. Everything that we build has to be high quality, and we pair that, of course, with innovative software. If our hardware alone was to be deployed, it probably wouldn't be as interesting as some of the software innovation. We're going to touch on some of that today. And then, of course, we combine that all with this license-free cloud management. It's something that sets us apart in the industry. It's something we can do because we still have a huge amount of control over the direction of our organization, because Robert is still the majority shareholder. Even though we're publicly listed, he has a firm commitment that we are a product company. We make our money by selling physical product. And then we don't charge recurring revenue for subscriptions, for licensing, or anything like that. So the portfolio is obviously very big. I mean, we used to run this slide quite a lot, but it's expanded much beyond there. But you'll see the main focus of today is about the new enterprise elements within the networking. There are other enterprise elements which we developed. We obviously have enterprise access, we have enterprise protect as well, but we're going to be focusing on network and network scale in this one. All things UniFi, if we distill them down, come down to these kind of key tenets. So everything is license free, as I mentioned before, and the experience with the product, both on the hardware and the software, everything should be really easy to be actionable. So information that is provided to you in the interface is always giving you answers. You'll see recently in the new version of Network, for example, we have a new panel that shows the Wi-Fi doctor. Simply clicking on that, it's going to give you recommendations to how to improve your Wi-Fi. Instead of just saying there's a problem, we're actually trying to give you answers and interactivity so you can fix those things. Ease of use is really critical for us. We hear it all the time. People love our product because it's so simple to use, especially as we move into the enterprise section. This advanced functionality, of course, is necessary. And then finally, of course, scalability, especially when it comes to enterprise. We're seeing people wanting to deploy on single sort of large sites which scale really high in terms of the number of users, but also on that horizontal scale. So when you're scaling out to hundreds or even thousands of sites being managed. So let's have a look at the requirements. What shifts have we been taking to actually move between, let's say, our standard product, which we've had up until now, and the newer enterprise product? We've always prided ourselves on the fact that our standard product is still very performant. It still has risk security, and there are redundancy options in our portfolio. But what the enterprise product therefore brings is that higher level of performance, improved security, and the better redundancy. The examples here, for example, is the E7 access point, which has higher counter spatial streams. It's got that dedicated scanning radio, but it's also got the dual redundant NICs in there to make the Wi-Fi experience above and beyond our standard U7 Pro line. We as an organization are changing as well. So it's not just about putting a enterprise product on the shelf. It's about changing the way that we provide support and we provide our services. So you'll know now as well that we have enterprise support, which you guys can actually pick up through the likes of Intelcom, where you're able to get 24/7 enterprise support for all sites. We're expanding our knowledge base. So instead of just tech specs and help pages, we've launched this brand new UniFi Academy as well. If you've not seen that yet, it's just academy.ui.com. You'll be able to find that through the recent blog posts as well, just on blog.ui.com. It's very simple to find this, but just to show you real quickly, academy.ui.com is going to give you this rich library, which is developing at the moment, of how to configure certain items. And then we, of course, have this advanced warranty package too, in the form of UI Care that's available. But the final point to all of this, as I mentioned to start with, software is a really key aspect of how we deliver our solutions. So we've historically had Site Manager. People love Site Manager, but Site Manager has been evolving. There's been a lot of updates going on in the back end. And as we hit version 5.0 of Site Manager, it got a rebranding as well to UniFi Fabrics. And Fabrics is a whole new way of looking at enterprise grade management and providing more tooling. So we're going to learn about that. So I'm going to go into a bit of a story now. If you've ever been on one of my webinars, there's usually a bit of a story to it. And we're going to look at the evolution of the enterprise network. So if we roll back the clock, then what you're able to see is the history of data and the history of workloads are really modeled on physical security. So if you go to pre-digital workloads, before people were sat at computers, they'd probably have documents on a desk in a physical building, and actually the data at night would go into a filing room or a filing cabinet under lock and key. So you had a privilege to get in the building, which would define your level of trust. That was your security. And by being in the building, of course, you could walk around people's desks, and literally the corridors between your desk and where the data was contained, a filing cabinet or a storeroom, was the network of the day. Now, as we evolved into digital working, so to start with mainframes and then moving on to PCs, what you saw was an evolution of that same model. By being in the building and having access to the local area network, what you actually had was the ability to access the information. And this became the standard model of security for quite a number of years. So as it evolved, effectively, you're replacing the physical infrastructure with this digital infrastructure. The LAN was what gave you access to the information. If you had access to the building and you had access to the LAN, you could access all of that data. That model kind of continued for a number of years. So as businesses got bigger, it wasn't just about the business users being on any one particular site, accessing information on any one particular data store or data center. It actually became about anywhere that you had an office, you would need to have access to the data on any other office. So the LAN infrastructure was appended with the WAN infrastructure. You had the rise of these quite complicated, very expensive private WAN models, MPLS and things like this. And it worked. It worked because people were using that same model, which is if I'm in a building, whether I'm in London or Los Angeles, I'm on a LAN, which is connected to a WAN, and that's giving me access to the data on our private network. So as this expanded out, of course, with redundancy needs, with resiliency needs, as applications got even more digital, as you had more interactivity, as the data size went up, you started spreading out, and eventually you ended up with a number of different offices all internetworked on this WAN with a number of different DCs. But around about 10 years ago, what we saw, of course, was the advent of cloud. Now, cloud to start with, well, I say 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago in some cases, to start with, what it did is it gave businesses the opportunity to not own the physical infrastructure, but actually shift to a cloud infrastructure, which was easier to manage. So the early days of this was sort of referred to as infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as a service, apologies. So in this, business users would start to not just traverse the WAN. In some cases, they'd actually traverse a public internet and have VPN out to that those applications in the cloud. But what also happened, and this is particularly true of around COVID, is the users also moved out of the workspace. So we all started working at home. I've worked at home for 10 years. I'm working at home right now. And it raises a big question about the relevancy of the original private WAN infrastructure. So in this scenario, what you saw was that more people were working at home and traversing purely the internet to either get to your private apps hosted in a cloud infrastructure or get to software as a service apps. As we are today, we're using Zoom. I'm running these slides on Google Workplace on slides there. So all of this doesn't actually require any kind of security at the network layer so much as security at the identity layer. It's not about where I am and what network I'm connected to anymore. It's more to do with about who I am and what privilege I have in order to access those tools. So another way of framing this is if you look at it from the angle of a compass, so north, south, east, west. Traditionally, we saw more people using an access network to move between their users and the actual data stores within that network. But and that was the key focus of an access network. It was usually quite complex, involved a lot of expensive equipment. But as you saw these specific applications move up onto the internet, and as you saw users move around into this other axes, what you had as a result was that your users weren't traversing the network from east to west. They were actually moving north to south. So your WAN, your internet service, was actually the key constraint, and everyone was accessing out to the network. Now, in this new axis, in this new world, you still have these requirements. You need this access network to be high performance. You need it to have built-in redundancy. You need that security to evolve to be identity based and not just based on I have access to the network. It's about I have an access to the network and I am this person. You also need assurances. So are your applications reachable? Are they giving you the right latency? I couldn't give you a webinar right now if my internet service or my local area network was not appropriately routing my voice and my video traffic to you guys. Similarly, SD-WAN has its relevancy because you're shifting between private circuits and actually running your internet as an internet transport and then using a VPN over the top. And fundamentally, of course, policy-based routing as well. In this new world, you want your access network to make intelligent decisions such that if I have multiple WAN services, I want certain traffic to route one way. If I have some internal applications hosted on my private enterprise apps, I may need those to route another way. So what we've done is fundamentally built for this new world with our new enterprise stack. We still have capabilities for East and West, but we're mostly designed around moving traffic north to south. And as an example of that East and West, we still believe in hosting some applications locally. A good example is this unit at the bottom is our enterprise NVR. If you're running cameras on your network, you don't want to use your internet service to route all of that data out all of the time. Instead, you can store all of that locally and retain control of that. And that does depend on having a network stack, which is not just supporting you in that north-south design, but on the east-west design as well. So shifting back then, this really is what the model looks like today. It doesn't matter where you are, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be connected to your applications wherever they are, using internet as a transport. Your access network on this side, though, needs to be robust, especially in the enterprise space. And that's exactly where we position ourselves for, is reliable access networks using SD-WAN as a transport where necessary, and backing your policy decisions around trust, around security, on your based on your identity. So let's have a look at the actual physical product that we've got that supports this. This is our current enterprise architecture. What we have here is we have our new evolved Enterprise Fortress Gateway. This product's been out for just over a year, which sits at the top end of our requirements stack. So we took a UDM, we've dedicated the UDM purely to network. So this only runs network, but with this appliance, you can run up to 12.5 gigabit per second of secure routing. So if you have a 10 gig primary and perhaps a 1 gig backup, you could actually load balance across those and run them dual active. The EFGs support redundancy through something called shadow mode, and we'll see that in a minute. Coming down the layer, we have our enterprise campus switching, which is working a double duty as both a core and an aggregation. This particular switching stack supports multi-chassis link aggregation. And as you can see in this diagram, we actually support running this as a single tier or as 2 tiers. So if your expansion requires, we can actually use multiple layers of the enterprise campus aggregation. Then coming all the way down, we've also got the campus access switching. We've launched the 24 and the 48. We have the S version as well coming out very soon, which introduces stacking, yet more redundancy options. And then at the bottom, a couple of ones to note, the 5G product, which is bringing 5G as a primary connectivity mechanism as well, both in an indoor and an outdoor model, can be connected into this architecture, giving you 5G as a WAN, as a primary WAN service. And also our E7 AP, as I mentioned before, this particular unit designed for the high levels of redundancy and performance. At the top of the stack as well, just to finish off, we have our WAN switches, just a lightweight, simple switch in order to allow an ISP connection to be connected into both of the gateways. So product by product, the EFG here, we've got a couple of 25 gig ports. We have the 2 10 gig SFP plus ports, and we've got the 2 copper 2.5 gig ports on there. On the rear of this device, there are 2 150 watt power supplies. So you can actually run the EFG entirely on one, or if you have 2 power feeds, what you're able to do there is actually power each power supply independently. And then if you've got an issue on one of your power feeds, it can fail over to the secondary power supply. And they're hot swappable, so you can actually change them in the midst of operation. And as I mentioned, the EFG supports that shadow mode for redundancy. With this particular device, we actually suggest that you can run up to 500 UniFi devices, so additional switches and APs, and over 5,000 clients. You'll see a case study in a minute where actually we go way up and above 5,000 clients with the EFG. So the campus aggregation, having a quick look at this, we have 48 25 gigabit ports on here. So these will negotiate down to 10 gig as well if you need to. And we have these 6 100 gig ports on the end. Typically, we see these 100 gig ports used as an interconnect. So if you deploy 2 enterprise campus aggregations, what they're able to do is be linked together using multi-chassis link aggregation, which means that your switches downstream and your gateways upstream can have a link aggregated bundle with a switch, with a cable going to both the first and the second unit, which means if you had a failure of one of the aggregation switches, the link bundle and the connected device would still be able to operate connected to either the top or the bottom. Once again, this is actually a dual power supply unit, so it has a 1+1 redundancy. The entire unit can run on a singular supply, but it's got 2 there for redundancy. And the same is true with the fans. We have hot swappable fans on this unit too, should you need to replace those. I mentioned before, we've already launched the campus, 24 and 48 ports. This is a 10 gig capable port arrangement. So you have 2.5 gig on the first third here, and then the second 2/3, you've got 10 gig face ports here. So our new enterprise APs, for example, with their 10 gig ports, can be connected into here, giving you a 10 gig uplink from the AP. All of these ports support 90 watts of PoE, and with the power supply arrangement, it will come with 600 watt supplies. You can upgrade them to 1200 watt supplies, and if you choose to, you can share the load across those 2 supplies, giving you a 2 kilowatt budget on here. So if you wanted to run a lot of very high demand PoE kit, you can do so. The 24 and the 48 then have an upgraded model coming, as I mentioned before. So the S model of the 24 and the 48 brings into it a couple of additional pieces. We have a management port, so you can have this managed on a separate network segment and keep the front ports purely for running the data. We have a console port. This was a requirement that we heard a lot of enterprises asking for, so we've added in a console port. And finally, we've got these 2 100 gig QSFP28 ports, and these are for the stacking itself. So you're able to create a stack of up to 8 switches, either the 24S or the 48S, and they will interop together so that you can share the uplinks coming from this particular device up to the aggregation layer. A quick look at the E7 access points then. I haven't got all of the specification on here, but it is all available on the website. If you do want to see all of the nerdy details, just head on over to Tech Specs, and in our enterprise segment, you'll see, for example, the E7. In this particular model, what we have is we've got 2 ports on the back. So there's a primary 10 gig port here, and there's a 1 gig redundant port. These ports can be connected to any switches. The switches don't need to be in a stack. The AP itself intelligently manages its own failover. So it will take power on both of the cables. And then if you lose a switch, if you lose a cable, if you lose just service in any other way, the port is broken, then it will be able to continue running on the other port that's available. We have 3 models of the Enterprise 7. There's the standard ceiling mount omnidirectional. We have a campus model, which is a directional model designed for outdoors. And then we have this large radio head, which is for the audience. So for ultra high density, we have this as well, which will connect up to 1,500 clients on a single radio. So on that diagram as well, I mentioned the 5G units. We've got these 3 5G units available now. The UDR 5G isn't really part specifically of the enterprise lineup, but the 5G Max and the 5G Max Outdoor are really obvious examples of where you can connect these into your enterprise network and provide additional capability. You can use those as a 5G WAN. I have been using 5G as a primary WAN service in my office on and off for the last couple of months. Certainly the latency with 5G is really, really good. You get sub 50 millisecond on there now, so it's perfectly adequate for video calling. And obviously the performance increases. The silicon speeds shows up to 3.4 gigabit per second. In our testing, we've actually been able to run up to 2 gig. Obviously, the backhaul of the cellular network provider is going to be influential on what speed you're able to get. But certainly in our tests, we've seen up to 2 gigabit per second with the 5G Max. So that is the full architecture of the products today. So for the larger enterprises, all the way from the top and cascading down, we're using all of these to actually underpin some really significant size enterprises. UniFi is not just for smaller businesses or hospitality. It is capable of running these really large deployments. As an example of that, we've got a case study which I'll show you in a minute, which is a FedEx Forum, where we're running up to 9,000 clients. But just to walk through some of these features as well, shadow mode was the feature that enables failover on a gateway. This particular implementation, we use a VRRP heartbeat between the two units. But what we're actually doing is we're synchronizing the full connection tracking table so that in the event of a failover, clients are actually able to preserve their session in progress and failover. And from the ISP side and from the LAN side, we actually create a one-to-one clone of the port arrangement. So it literally looks like the gateway has just moved between ports during a failover event. The configuration of this, we've made super, super simple. So in the most recent network builds, simply jumping into the settings, when you set up your first one, you'll be able to connect your second device in. You follow this really simple guide and it tells you what it's doing every step of the way. And once you're set up entirely, you've got the choice of either leaving the shadow gateway as a manual failover, or you can activate an automatic failover as well. It's in the same settings panels where you can liven up multi-chassis link aggregation and stacking as well. So on academy.ui.com, you'll be able to find some more information about this. But for now, I've just got this expanded diagram to show you. So the shadow mode is taking place at this gateway layer. Multi-chassis link aggregation will bundle those two aggregation switches together into one logical switch, which can create a bundle of links north and also a bundle of links south, so that you're able to see the to see performance and redundancy gains as well through the access layer. I've just noticed there's a couple of questions coming through. Let me just see. Okay. Right. So the FedEx Forum is the example I mentioned before. This is a good example where we're using the EFG, the ECS aggregation, ECS 24 and 48 switching, and also the E7s. This in particular, you've got a 20,000 or 18,000 seat stadium. And what we often see is connection counts up to 9,000. So whilst we advertise the EFG as being capable as 5,000 plus, we know that in some designs, for example, it extends above and beyond. So we're using a combination of different APs. We're using multiple 10 gigabit circuits in order to provide this level of coverage. And to give you a real example of this, I've actually got access to the FedEx Forum network. So this is loading the data all the way from Memphis right now. You can see here we have 83 switches deployed, 298 access points, and there's a further 199 other devices on here. And as recent as, here we go, yesterday, we've seen service running through here. In terms of client count, it looks like we're up to around 1,600 clients at this point, 1,700 in the little modal on the graph there. And we're seeing latency of only 10 millisecond going through our stack with hundreds of megs of data coming down for those clients. So we've got a huge amount of UniFi equipment actually installed in this location, as you can see, over 500 different UniFi devices. So that's the first level here of looking at the physical product. In the second level, I'm going to quickly review some of the things that we're doing as a company as well, so you guys can see what we're up to there. So first of all, enterprise support. I mentioned this just before. We now have a 24-hour professional support service. Our team in Europe is actually based in Stockholm. These guys have a direct line through to our developers. So with these guys, what you're able to do is access the support that you need directly through the interface. Our team will be able to troubleshoot even the largest deployments, and we have a simple flat rate for any site to enable this level of service. This is available through the likes of Intelcom as well as direct in the user interface. I mentioned before, UniFi Academy is growing all the time at the moment. You'll see there's a few categories here which we're yet to add to do with database sizing, performance tuning. So if you're an expert user and you need a little more information other than what is in our help pages or on the existing guidance, then you can come to the Academy as well. On our case studies is where you're going to find loads of interesting information about how we're deploying at scale. Once again, just to take you over there, because it's a useful resource, it's simply casestudies.ui.com. We have this example here for the Memphis Grizzlies that I just showed you, but we've got these other examples. Okay, let me just drop this link in the chat for you guys as well. So you'll see as well that when we do events, we're seeing 27,000 devices connecting onto our network. We've got some really significant brands in the form of Sony on board with our equipment. And you're seeing different, oh, this one's new, 50,000 visitors at this particular stadium as well. So we've got a range of different businesses ranging from the really high vertical scale with thousands of clients to also ones where you've got multiple sites under management too. So in these examples, 50 plus sites are being run in each of these on these case studies. So you can look into each of them and you can see what specifically they are able or they're actually doing. So in this example, this is actually using our UISP kit, but in other examples, people are using UniFi kit as well. Okay. So that's the case studies. UI Care is also a new package here. And once again, I'll just drop the link. It's fairly easy to find. This is still developing in some regions. So I do encourage you to have a look at the terms and conditions because it may not be available in Georgia just yet. But certainly if there is significant demand, then we'll be able to actually liven this up in region as well. So just dropping the link here for UI Care. This is a 5-year advanced replacement warranty and it's unlimited as well. Roughly speaking, it comes out at about 20% of the MSRP. So if you're taking one of our products like our Fortress Gateway, which retails typically at about $2,000, then for about $400, you're able to pick this up. I realize I've just been pasting some links in the wrong areas. So let me just post that one in the everyone chat and I'll do the same for the case studies link as well. There we go. So UI Care is a new advancement, which again, we know a lot of enterprises care a lot about making sure that they're protected for years to come. One of the things that you should know is if ever we stop producing one of the units, we simply upgrade you to the next model. So if you take a 5-year plan and we stop producing one of the units within that 5 years, you do get added to the full, to the next model. Another development here then is the partner program, and I'll definitely get you guys a link to this because this is generating a lot of interest at the moment. We are expanding this at the moment. We understand our partners, our resellers, our integrators out there are really, really important for helping us penetrate new areas of market. It's the whole reason we actually work through distributors like Intelcom. So in this program, we've got a new level of service for support called professional integrators as well. With this program, instead of buying service to support on a per site basis, you can get it for your entire organization in one go. So this is a significant step where a particular organization can basically take up a direct agreement with us for $1,000 a year and be able to connect straight through to our team, regardless of which site they're supporting. Similarly, the channel partner program is being developed where we're starting to include more units available through this program in order to give you slightly better pricing as well. So this is again being expanded all the time, and we encourage you to give as much feedback as you can about what you like to see in that sense. You'll see UI Care is mentioned on the Partner Hub, and we have an upcoming certification program and also a knowledge base being developed, which will allow partners to get some more insight as to best practice and guidance on how to set things up. This will run alongside Academy. So that is the Partner Hub and the Partner Program as well. And the final point here about what we're doing as a company, pre-sales. Pre-sales is a new function. Originally, the company was managed effectively, all of Europe was managed by Carson, but he was taking the role more so of a sales operations and territory manager. So whilst Carson is technical, he didn't really have the time to run a lot of technical. But we've since obviously established ourselves. So I joined the team in July 2024. We also have support from our US colleagues, from Andrew and Craig. And over the last year, we've added into our team Kosai, Naveed, Fulvio, and Lakshmi. These guys are distributed across Europe, and we've also got a range of languages supported. So if you're looking at support in French, German, Arabic, Italian, as well as English, then we have that support here too. So then that kind of ticks off this midsection of what we're doing as a company in order to provide enterprise grade of service to people. So that leaves this final section where we're going to dive a little bit into fabrics. It should take about 10 minutes, and then if there's any other questions, we'll be able to take those. So fabrics is an evolution to Site Manager. You guys, if you've used UniFi before, will know that Site Manager was a tool that allowed you to access any one of your sites anywhere through unifi.ui.com. What we've done with Site Manager is we've expanded that functionality to include the concept of a fabric, which means if you are running a lot of sites all at once, you're able to group them together into a fabric, and you can set policy decisions on that fabric all in one central location. If you then have a separate company that you're managing as an MSP, for example, you can then create a second fabric for them and set the relevant admins, policies, integrations for people management, etc. There is a ton of information about this new system on academy.ui.com. We launched them at the same time. One of the fundamental principles, and I'm going to pause this video at this point here, is that every fabric can be integrated with your choice of identity provider. I mentioned before that security has shifted. It's not just about network security, it's about identity now. So we treat UniFi like another SSO application, which means that you can integrate to Microsoft Entra, Google, or whatever IDP of your choice, and you can use your policies in your identity provider to change the way that people are actually able to access parts of the network or access some of the services. Of course, we don't just do network. We also have physical door access control. We also have camera systems, for example. So Fabrics is centered around identity-based security, giving people a really simple way of scaling out how people access the network and how they're able to manage that very, very simply through these real-time synchronizations. And if ever there's a situation where in your identity provider you revoke a privilege, quite simply, it cascades through immediately. So if someone's left the organization, they will lose their privileges on the fabric as well. They'll lose network access, they'll lose physical door access, and they will knock them basically completely offline. So fabrics you saw when I came over to my interface before, you'll see this new panel on this side here, which shows groupings of fabrics. We still have the ability to manage individual sites as well. So you can see a list here of independent sites, and at the top, any sites which have been bonded into a fabric as well. Some of the pieces that you can configure then, just to show you the functionality, I mentioned the identity binding. So you simply enable consolidated people management. There is a very simple one-click system. You click on your chosen provider, in my case, Entra, You log in and we handle all of the configuration for you to get this up and operational. We actually run the synchronization service on your console. So you would elect a console to act as a master, and that provides the sync with the cloud-based identity service. Once that's set up, it will automatically send through invitations to users who get added. So you can see a checkbox here. You can enable additional pieces as well around what levels of security you need. And you can just enable services with simple radio checkboxes. So if you want to enable one-click Wi-Fi through identity, a simple click, name your network, and every single site within the fabric will then have added a Wi-Fi network which your users can join to with just a simple application click. The same true for VPN, the same is true for smart door access and shared cameras as well. In terms of configuring, we're also working heavily on orchestration. So instead, if you have, say, for example, 50 or 100 sites, instead of having to go to each of those sites individually and configure a network, you now have the ability within Site Manager, within Fabrics, to configure a network. You'll get a similar panel to what you would normally get with on the console, and you can just choose which sites these apply to, all sites or maybe groups of individual sites. With that, a simple click and you've configured a network which can be cascaded out to multiple sites all at once. You'll get a really simple progression bar which shows that the synchronization is complete, and then you would have been able to deploy to 50 or 100 sites all within a couple of clicks. The same functionality as Wi-Fi orchestration has come to networks as well. So if you wanted to create a specific VLAN or subnet across all sites, you can do so. And you can see on the left-hand side here, the pieces that we're expanding. We're going to be doing internet options in there. We'll be doing our policy engine, the zone-based firewall, and cybersecure is also ready now in an upcoming release. Fabrics will also aggregate the system log up to the top level. So instead of having to go site by site to see any critical issues, you can aggregate all of your sites to a single centralized view and see very quickly the health of that. One of the most powerful features is probably this global device list. So when you have a group of sites, knowing who is where or what devices are connecting to the network where is quite a challenge. So with this view, what you're able to do is see which people are connected onto which network and using what device, and then how as well. So it's very easy to see where users are. So if someone calls up and says, hey, I'm having a problem, you can look up their device and you can see exactly where they're connected and how they're connected. And the same is true for audit purposes. If you're looking to manage a large refresh of a particular, point of sale system, you could do so just by looking at this list and seeing where those systems are still active. Zero touch provisioning is a major piece as well coming in here. So we are able to pre-provision certain sites as well now. And in doing so, it just means when the site actually comes online, you can set the relevant Wi-Fi network and other configuration options so that it is ready to go as soon as you bring it online. So automated provisioning without having to sit on site, bring a service live, and then start configuration. And there's a ton more coming in this space. Fabrics is going to be very fastly developed over the next few months. We have pieces like eSIM management coming if you're managing our 5G product at scale. We're introducing the concept of carrier fabrics. So if you are an MSP looking after a number of individual fabrics, you can have a global orchestration layer over the top of that as well. Things like reporting and granular role-based access control is also coming to fabrics. So that kind of brings it to a close, really. The logic here is we've worked on our physical product, we've improved performance, security, redundancy, and we've produced the UniFi Enterprise range. We've worked on our organization and what we're delivering, so new support options, new learning options, and better warranty services, making Ubiquiti an enterprise partner. And of course, Site Manager has been evolved into unified fabrics as well. So all of that together puts us in a position where you can take up UniFi for your enterprise projects, and all of this remains, of course, license-free as well. We probably, let me just check, we might have a couple of questions come through, so let me have a look. Okay, so can multiple identity providers be used simultaneously? At current, no, but it is in our roadmap. So in subsequent launches of fabrics, you will be able to use multiple different identity providers. The carrier fabric function will also introduce the concept of an MSP integration as well. So you can have your admins directly SSO integrated, and you can associate those with granular role-based permissions. What that means is a singular user, for example, might be a junior in their IDP, and that maps through to the ability to maybe change ports or Wi-Fi configuration, but not erase sites. Synchronization is real time. We are basically with the real-time sync, we're using SCIM as the major protocol there. So if you have a change in a user's permission in the identity provider, that will cascade through as well. I've only got a couple of questions on here at the moment. Has anyone else got any questions whilst we're here? Perhaps if you've got any, if you can just type it out in the Q&A. I have the panel live open on my second screen here. Let me just quickly talk about as well events. We've got a range of events coming up. We're rerunning UWC on events.ui.com. So just to show you this, and I'll drop the link in the chat again. So on our world events page here, the live events that we've got coming up, we are running UWC in London, in Paris, and in Munich. I appreciate that's a little bit of a distance from Georgia, but if you are able to get to any of these, this is an opportunity to hear not from just the team, but also from Robert himself, as he'll be running the keynote at these. Let me just have a quick look on the chat, because it looks like we've got another question. So there's another question here about identity provider events like disabled in Entra ID. We would see the user on our side as going inactive. We wouldn't necessarily log on that, but we would just recognize that that user is no longer available on our side. So that is, that's that. Right, let me just have a look. Might have to run some translation on a couple of questions. Give me a second, please. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions come through right now, actually. So anything else I can help you guys with? We've got about 10 minutes left. Perhaps whilst there's some more coming through. The other aspect to events.ui.com, not just our live events, but we're also hosting some virtual events. We are doing our best to increase our language here. So the languages that we offer to. So you'll note that we've got some English and Spanish, Mandarin, none in Georgian, I'm afraid. But we do have, as much as possible, that reach out now to different languages. We're trying to keep this event calendar really, really busy. So you'll note that in here, obviously referencing back to events which have happened in the past, but moving forwards, there's a bit more of a dive into the MSP functionality in the events that we're running towards the end of March here. So there is a lot more to come. we're scheduling as much as we can to show off what we can now. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions come through. Oh, here we go. Can access be segmented based on roles automatically via group membership? Yeah, so this is kind of coming in our strategy here is for micro segmentation. The idea being that you don't necessarily need to segment people using traditional networking concepts. So instead of putting a user into a specific VLAN, the reason that we've historically put users into VLANs is it makes it nice and easy to then police what that VLAN or subnet can do. Because if I put you in VLAN 200 and I know that you're on a 10.200/24 network, then I can create ACLs which allow me to police what that particular person can do. So the evolution to that, of course, has been the zone-based firewall, where you're just you don't worry about what the specific ACLs are. Instead, what you do is you say what you are and aren't able to do between two specific zones. And the evolution of the zone is really making it an individual. So if I put you as an individual into a group, and that says that you are or you aren't allowed to access a particular set of services, then it doesn't matter whether you're on VLAN 1, 100, or 200. If you as an individual aren't able to access that service based on the policy grid, then it will stop you from being able to access that. So effectively, intelligently, it manages all of the ACLs under the hood on your behalf. The reason we're shifting in that direction is because when you look at multi-site, you're left with having to configure different ACLs on different networks across a huge region. When you look at moving off-site, VPN itself creates its own challenge because a VPN user doesn't normally get added directly into a specific as a specific sort of VLAN. So the identity-based security that we're working on, which is due out later this year, will actually manage all of that for you. Okay. Not seeing any more questions just now. Perhaps I can leave you guys with this then. The guys at Intelcom, they know how to get in touch with us. If you do have any further questions that you want answering, please feel free to reach out to those guys, and they'll be able to forward on questions to us as well, and we'll be able to get some answers for you. If I haven't answered your question or there's other things that you want, just reach out to us through there. Perhaps we'll see you at UniFi World Conference as well. But thanks for your time today, and I look forward to supporting you in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. Let me explain in Georgian.
Okay.
კიდევ კითხვები შეგიძლიათ დასვათ აი Q&A სესია სადაც არის. მან არის ეგეთი ჩანართი Q&A. მაგ ჩანართში შეგიძლიათ დასვათ კითხვები. ან ხელი აიწიოთ თუ არის კიდევ კითხვები. აი აკო გურგენიძეს თუ მიეცა საშუალება რომ დაესვა კითხვა. კარგით, როგორც ჩანს მეტი კითხვები არ არის. Thank you so much, Mr. Dan. We can finish our webinar.
That's great. Thanks very much, guys. We'll speak to you soon.